Welcome back to Poland Daily History. I'm here in the studio with Anglo-Polish filmmaker Stefan Tompson. Stefan, welcome again. Among the films you've made, and while we're on this subject of sort of controversy from history, you've made a number of films and have looked into this whole concept, this very emotive issue, of course, of the German concentration camps, which were built, unfortunately, on Polish territory, and of course, which have caused some degree of distress in international press when careless journalists have referred to Polish death camps, of course, which is very unfortunate. I mean, and you also went to Berlin and talked to Germans, and I was wondering, what is the assessment you think from the German side of this memory of these terrible places?
The very first thing I have to say is, regards to your question, is you said on Polish territory. I'd like to specify the camps were built on German-occupied Polish territory.
I'm as guilty as everybody else.
There we are.
Yes.
There we are. Broadly speaking, to put the matter in shortest possible terms, people who support the term Polish death camp will usually argue that the word Polish denotes location rather than responsibility, and that term bears no impact on whether the Poles were complicit or not.
Yes.
The shortest way of arguing against this is obviously saying that we refer to multiple things. For example, Roman buildings in the United Kingdom, we refer to them as Roman buildings. Hadrian's Wall, for example. I mean, we don't call them sort of British Roman ruins. We call them Roman ruins that, they happen to be.
So we should be quite clear and say.
So I think in this sense, I think that they're German, definitely the German Nazi death camps in, I mean, if one wants to specify, in Poland. The fascinating thing is that some camps that aren't even located in current-day Poland, for example, Dachau has been referred to as a Polish concentration camp.
Which is bizarre, because that was never anywhere near Poland,
right?
Yes.
So that term, and I think that term definitely, there is an element of shifting, there is an element of confusion. And with the Second World War being 80 years away now, it's quite a long time. It's passing out of living memory, and people are less and less clear about who was responsible. And in fact, the most terrifying thing of all is that as that memory, as those events are passing out of living memory, the youth is less and less aware of what happened. The recent studies in the United States showed that about 50% of teenagers in the US weren't even aware of what the Holocaust was, which is a very terrifying thing.
That is remarkable, isn't it, when you think of the amount of historical programming now that is available, and the emphasis that so much is put on this terrible chapter in our history, that people are still generally ignorant of what went on.
Yeah, it's absolutely shocking and very worrying, because one of the things that is crucial for civil society and liberal democracy to continue is an understanding of what totalitarianism is and where it can lead to. And having the youth not understand what the dangers are of totalitarian ideology, where it can lead to, be it the Gulag or be it death camps, on either sides of the extreme is very worrying. So, but to answer your question, I did go to Berlin. I spent some time speaking both to historians, to experts. I actually spoke to some members of the far right, of the German far right, to ask them about this as well. And I spoke to sort of members of the public. I did a so-called vox pop, and we did it with my brother who was filming. We did it by the Shoah Memorial, which is a very interesting place, because it's a place that has about 2,711, from memory. I'm not sure if this, don't quote me on this, but slabs, concrete slabs each representing a page of the Talmud. It's a sprawling monument. It's the size of several football fields in the very center of Berlin. It's an incredible place, very haunting, very eerie, and in fact very terrifying, in the sense that a lot of people, as they went to, I don't believe they were fully aware of what this place was. And one of the things is that the way the slabs are built, they're built in increasing size, which makes it a very easy thing to climb and to sort of jump around on, which people were doing as we were there, and that was an incredibly unsettling sight to see, having a memorial to the victims, to the 6 million people murdered in the Holocaust, and having people, members of the public, sort of probably blissfully unaware of what this was, jumping around on it. But as we stood there and asked people about it, and we asked them about the role of Poland in the Second World War, the thing that came out the most was absolute ignorance as to that chapter of history, and a very strong very strong fear of actually speaking about those times and about German responsibility. It wasn't something that people were comfortable talking about. So it made for some very uncomfortable interviews. But of that time I spent in Berlin, I think the most fascinating meeting of all was with meetings with representatives of the far right and young men. And we spoke at length. That was the purpose of the meeting, was to speak at length about German history and about pride in Germany, because I wouldn't want to deny anyone the right to be proud in their nation.
Of course not, no.
But it is, when your history is such that in living memory, still passing living memory, but nonetheless living memory, your country ended up not only voting for and embracing a totalitarian ideology that led to the deaths of 50 million people and occupied, well, not only Poland, but the vast majority of Europe and caused absolute utter chaos, death and destruction, with consequences reaching, the consequences of the Second World War are still echoing into today.
Indeed they are.
Open any newspaper on any given day in Poland and you will find a reference to World War II. I don't believe that there is a single day that passes that World War II is not discussed somewhere in Poland in the press. And it was very, very interesting to talk to them about that, and it was, in a sense, it was quite haunting because despite acknowledging the crimes, I had a feeling that there was nonetheless a desire to definitely overlook those times, and for various reasons, whether they be right or wrong, of embracing again various elements of that ideology for various purposes. Were they nefarious or not is not up to me to decide. I believe I didn't spend enough time to reach such conclusions. But nonetheless, it was very worrying, especially to me as a Pole. So that was, I think, one of the most interesting things I did in Berlin. And it was, as I think about it, I feel a slightly eerie feeling inside.
Yes,
Yeah.
well, I think this is when we see in the modern era politicians stirring up differences between people, picking on imaginary enemies. It's not hard to see how, if this gets out of hand, it could lead to something very unpleasant, which is probably a good point to end this section, hoping we don't see anything unpleasant.
Hopefully.
Stefan, thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Nicholas.
you.